So this week we'll be discussing clinical research with special populations. So what we're going to be doing is looking at study subjects that are especially vulnerable and require us to examine our roles in the clinical research field in order to adequately protect them and potentially shield them from abuse. So your readings this week are going to discuss areas of concern with these subjects along with attention to the informed consent concerns as well as the representation issues with respect to institutional review boards and how these special populations of subjects need to be represented when research is approved and evaluated. We're also going to look at a very egregious and perhaps even criminal example of abuse of special populations that involve doctors from the U.S. Public Health Service in a study that occurred back in the 1940s. So our learning objectives for this week are going to be to define special populations in clinical research. We're also going to discuss important considerations involving the informed consent of special population subjects, and we're going to understand the circumstances and ethical issues of the U.S. public health research studies that were conducted at Tuskegee and also in Guatemala. You'll probably remember the Tuskegee study from our week 1 readings. We'll be discussing a very egregious study that occurred back in the 1940s involving subjects in Guatemala that I think you'll find very interesting. So we'll go over these learning objectives and that'll drive our activities for the week. So what are examples of special populations? They're going to be people with cognitive impairments, with certain disabilities, certain mentally ill patients. They're also going to be children, minors under the age of 18. They can also be captive populations, which would include soldiers, prisoners, even students in a residential environment. All of these are examples of special populations. You can also include certain subjects that may be infirmed in certain group homes. Those people would also be examples of vulnerable populations. So we just need to make sure we understand who those are and what kind of special considerations they're going to have when they participate in a research study. So we have several readings for this week that I think you're going to get a lot out of. We're going to be talking about research involving people with mental disorders and some of the issues that are associated with that. Also, the second article here, Caring About Risks, written by the author Carl Elliott, who is a well-known ethicist in our field, a psychiatrist at the University of Minnesota. Going to be talking about some considerations with consenting subjects, specifically those that have psychological conditions that may not fully understand exactly what they're participating in, but who otherwise might be mentally competent to participate. Also, some discussion about captive populations, in this case military personnel, and then finally a discussion of the U.S. Public Health Service research studies that were conducted at Tuskegee and most specifically in Guatemala back in the 1940s. That I think you're going to find this information to be very eye-opening and interesting. So we'll have a discussion board item. So once you complete the readings and spend some time on that, you'll respond to a discussion board question, and that question is going to be, if you were working on a clinical trial involving potentially vulnerable subjects, what would you be most concerned about and why? So I'd like for you to kind of draw from some of the learning that you've gotten this week from the readings and be able to respond to that. Please go ahead and see if you can get your posting up there no later than Thursday. That'll give us a chance to take a look at those and respond back and forth and get some dialogue going.